So you want to be a peer counselor. How does that come about? Well, that's the question we're going to answer in this video. Hello, my name is Todd Harden. I'm the Executive Director of Grace Biblical Counseling, a ministry of Grace Baptist Church, where I also serve as the counseling pastor. I've been here at the time of this recording over 10 years, and we've developed a pretty effective peer counseling model where we have highly trained church folks that will walk alongside hurting people in our community and in our church and help them deal with difficult life-altering issues in many cases. So how does one become a peer counselor? Well, the reason I'm doing this video is not only for prospective counselors at Grace Baptist Church, but also for those other churches in our area who are thinking about starting their own counseling ministry that may want to know how we decided to do what we decided to do here when we set this ministry up in 2010. First, the way I look at things when I'm looking at a prospective counselor, I'm looking for 4 qualities. I remember those qualities, or you can remember those qualities through the acronym FATS, F-A-T-S. F stands for faithful. We want faithful counselors. What do I mean by that? Well, there's certain doctrinal teachings that we want our counselors at Grace Biblical Counseling to hold to. One would be they must counsel in accordance with the Baptist Faith and Message of 2000. They must adhere to the Nashville Statement on gender. And as far as biblical inerrancy goes, they must agree with the Chicago Statement on biblical inerrancy. We are a conservative, evangelical, Southern Baptist Convention church, and we believe the Bible. And so if you're going to be a participant or a peer counselor here in Grace Biblical Counseling, you must adhere to those 3 documents or agree with those 3 documents. Also, as far as faithful goes, you need to be fully functioning in our family of faith here. You have to be a member of our church and have to have gone through the members class and so on and so forth. But that's what we mean by faithful. So if you're looking at creating your own ministry, I think that would be a very positive thing that you should do. A stands for available. It doesn't do a lot of good to have someone trained for counseling if they're not available to help you. We have certain requirements for our counselors as far as their availability goes. They are required, how it works for us is we have what we call grace groups. It's a discipleship group that I lead that's only of our counselors. It meets during the second service on Sundays, and it meets every week. And it's a discipleship group, but it's also a supervision group. So in that group each week, we talk about not only the Bible and theology and those kind of things, but we also do group supervision as far as counseling cases so that we can help each other with that. And so that works really well for us because a lot of the learning and improvement is caught more than taught sometimes. And so somebody can be listening to one counselor talk about what they're working on with a person, and it helped them and those kind of things. So we also do role plays and things like that during that time. So that's a very protected and important time to us as a counseling ministry. And so we expect our counselors to participate in that group. We also expect them to see at least 3 clients at a time. That doesn't mean at one time, but I mean on their schedule. Typically, we'll do a short-term 12-week type scenario of same-sex counseling, but so we're asking for about 3 hours worth of commitment per week or so for our counselors. That's not too much considering all the other things that the church would require of different people in different ministries. So that's what we mean by available. You've got to be available. You've got to remember there's a lot of money, resources, time that's invested in you as a counselor, and so there needs to be a contribution on your part of participating in the ministry. So there's faithfulness or faithful, there's available, and then T is teachable. One of the things I learned a long time ago when I developed the ministry was that we'd have people that had been trained in other models approach our ministry and want to participate, and that's well and good, but we have a certain way of doing things around here that's worked with us really well over the years. And so we want you to counsel in a certain framework. There's a lot of training that goes on. I'll walk through that in just a moment. But what you may have learned before doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be applicable to how we do things here. And so you need to be teachable. Who knows, you might learn something. How it works now, though, is if you apply and you're accepted, at least in the initial stages, you'll go through a couple of online courses that I've put together, which are several lessons. There's sort of a foundations course, and then there's also a kind of a short-term counseling course that teaches some of the basics of how we do things. Now, after you've been accepted, we also invest in you further by paying for you to pursue your certificate from the Association of Biblical Counselors from Fort Worth, Texas. Not the Association of Certified Biblical Counselors, but the Association of Biblical Counselors. ABC is what it's called. And most of our peer counselors have that certification already under their belt. What you have to understand is that I shepherd the counselors. So I take it as a personal project to help you grow in your grace and knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ, but also in your counseling skills. And so this is not a church ministry where you read a book, a 13-week book or something, and you're left out on your own to your own devices without any support or help. I'm intimately involved in helping you work with difficult situations or work with people that are hurting with all kinds of problems in living. And so there's a continual interaction there. So there's a continual growth on your part. And so it can be an exciting time, but you have to be teachable. You've got to learn from things. And so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a humility there of people that are willing to learn. In addition to being faithful and available and teachable, this is kind of one of the big one. And the S is for suitable. Now, what do I mean by suitable? There are some individuals that are just simply temperamentally not cut out to be counselors. Now, that doesn't mean they can't take the class. That doesn't mean they can't make 100s on any kind of assessment I could ever possibly throw their way. They could attend every function. That doesn't necessarily mean God has gifted them to be a counselor. Now, God has gifted them to be a teacher on some level, because He tells us to make disciples, that's for all of us. And so all of us on some level have been called to be teachers. But there's a certain level of emotional intelligence, of an ability to deal with people that are struggling with very intense emotional outbursts from time to time, possibly. We need individuals that are self-reflective, that are not trying to control others. So there's all kinds of things like that that may come up. Now, so how it works is you're accepted into the kind of the pre-program, where you go through the first parts of training. You go through the 2 courses that I've taught. You start to participate in some of our small group activities. And then once you're accepted to that level, once you pass phase 1, if you will, we have a phase 2 where we will slowly start letting you role play with some of our experienced counselors. We'll work through that for a little while, and then if it still seems like you're all those things we talked about, if there's a good connection with you and other people within our ministry, then we'll extend you to the 3rd phase, which is when we'll start having you see a few people under our supervision. We'll even videotape some of those sessions. And then once you've gone through that, at that point, you'll be accepted into the program, into the ministry, and then you will be asked to pursue the next step of pursuing your certification through ABC, as well as just taking on the other requirements we talked about. So that being the case, that's kind of how we do things. It's not an easy ministry, but it's, I would argue, the most rewarding ministry you could ever experience, because you really are there to help people that are struggling in very difficult times, and you're helping them see the goodness and glory of God. So if you feel like this is something you'd like to do, please feel free to reach out to us if you're a member of our church. But if you're not a member of our church, and let's say you're a pastor that's thinking of setting up one of these ministries, feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you about some of the things we've learned along the way. So hopefully you won't step in some of the potholes that we did. Anyway, regardless, if you have any comments, leave them below. God bless, and I look forward to hearing from you.